Hi, Radhika.
So, hi,
How are you
Vinity.
doing?
I'm doing okay considering everything, but safe and very, very grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad to hear that. And I'm super excited that you're joining Sai Shiko today. People know you really well, Radhika. You're well known. You're a serial entrepreneur, a mom, a friend to me, and I'm super excited to have you here. But I wanted to know a little bit more about Kind Life. That's something I'm curious to know a little bit more about.
So,
So
kind of,
tell me what you're doing at Kind Life.
yeah, so kind of has still been under the wraps as yet. And we started it early in the year, and it's a passion project. It really comes out of everything that I hold dear to me. And, like today's topic, Vinity, it is also. Um, it's a passion project that has become a passion over time.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to what we would talk about today, and if you'd asked me at 16 or 17 if I was resilient, and I would say no, not at all. But that
Yeah.
changed over time.
Yeah.
And early, I'd say kind life also comes out of experiences, a life
Hmm.
happening. It is all about mindful living. So we are really
Hmm.
building a tech platform that brings together mindful brands, it brings together mindful consumers, it creates a community, it creates commerce, and more important than that, it starts a conversation on mindful living, on living a kinder life. And that's the goal. And, the last, I always think, kya bolu? Is it last few months? Is it last few
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
Uh, Concept of time has been lost, but
Yes.
it's really pushed all of us to go back and look within our hearts and see what is it that we hold true. So in many ways, no better time than now to have a conversation around resilience.
Radhika, I can't agree with you more. I'm so glad that you're building something that requires some reflection, right, in commerce. I think that's critical, and that's what's going to make sort of everybody's journey, whether it's an entrepreneur or a seller or a buyer. And if that virtuous cycle goes, then I think we're in good stead. So thank you for building that. And I want to jump right into resilience, which is what we're talking about. Tell me, how do you define it? Um, People throw that word around all the time. How do you define resilience, and what does it mean to you?
So, on my desk at Shop Cruise, I have this little poster that was made by Reshmi, and I don't know if she's on the call. She handled PR for me for the longest time. And it
Mhm.
says, just show. And that really is my mantra for everything I do. And I've held that, I've held true to that over the last 20, 25 years, and it has just show up. In many ways, that's, if I were to define resilience in three words, it is just
Yeah.
show up. Now, whether you show up physically, whether you show up spiritually, whether you show up with it, just with your heart, or just on a
Yeah.
phone, that's what resilience is for me.
Yeah, I know. I think, I agree with you. I think, engagement is necessary for any sort of path clarification, right? And if you don't show up, then you don't get a response. And if you don't get a response, you don't take the next step. So I would absolutely agree with you that just showing up repeatedly almost is what resilience is. But a little bit more on how do you practice it, Radhika? I mean, in our lives, we faced minor setbacks, we faced major setbacks, we faced private setbacks and public setbacks. And there's a sort of inner conversation that carries on, and which probably made you just show up. But what is that inner conversation? What is it that you tell yourself when you hit a setback?
So let me tell you a little story over here. Vinity. My
Yeah.
father was in the army, and as was my grandfather. And between the two of them, they fought multiple wars. To what avail, I don't know, but that's a different topic. But they fought multiple wars. And
Yeah.
my grandfather, he was in the paratroopers, and he would tell us of this story that any time in their regiment, any time there was a death via an
Yeah.
accident, he jumped off a plane and he didn't make it down. The first thing that the company commander would do is take the entire troop back onto the flight, back onto the plane, and have
Yeah.
them jump right there. डर
Right.
होता है, बैठने ही नहीं देना चाहिए. Fear
Right.
cannot set, and
Right.
that's one of the many examples of, I would say, of building resilience on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And you know, that is why after just much thought, I feel that, you know, just show up in many ways um, defines for me what that is. The last 10 years of my life, 12 years of my life have been crazy, you know, building out shop clothes, having battled literally like a, you know, a personal issue in the newspapers, which is never fun. There have been times when I've wanted to just crawl under the bed and not get out and not show my face for a bit. But I'm very proud to say I haven't missed a day of work. I haven't missed a single event. I'm there. And it requires a lot of effort. And you know, you defined it well. You said that um, just to keep doing it when you face setbacks is so the easiest thing to do would be to just get in bed and not want to come out for a couple of days and or as I say, you know, get under the dining table with Bagel, who's our little dog, is just, you know, hide there till
Yeah.
Mama stops being angry. But
Yeah.
that's really it. You know, it is just go back. And then the other thing is that we always feel that things are very bad, and no, not really. They are never very, very bad. You'll get out of it, you know. Tomorrow
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Another day. Yeah.
absolutely.
No, Radhika, thanks for being so sort of, you know, you're putting out there a practice of showing up, and the metaphor of jumping off that plane again and again, I think is a very powerful one. We just have to, you have to come back, stand at that edge, and repeatedly try to show up and jump back. So I'm sure that stories like that from your father and grandfather played a massive role in just giving you the long-term perspective that things will go wrong. I mean, we do want to begin from a point of view of telling our children that, look, adversity is inevitable, right?
Right.
Um, and it isn't really just a one-time response to the first thing that puts you down, but a repeated habitual response of showing up. And I know that you've seen a lot, and I think you had a private struggle that was rather public. And you really do stand for a very resilient mindset. And to see you back here doing Kind Life this time around with all that knowledge, I'm sure it's going to be fascinating to watch. But there's one thing, you talked about is perspective, right?
Yeah.
We are often not looking at the long term. We're not looking as children, as younger people, they're not really seeing their life, backward, forward, rather we're always sort of living in this imaginary view of what we can be.
Yeah.
And perspective is important. Where do you go for perspective? What's that self-talk? Where do you go for perspective?
Yeah. A bad connection. Let me start again.
Yeah.
And that's why I started with saying that if you'd spoken to the 16, 17-year-old me, I wouldn't say that resilience was a personal strength. And I feel it does come with time, right? Um, I, I think back to the advice I would give a teenage myself, and I also think about the advice I'd give to my teenage son, and we both talk about that often as well. I have a 17-year-old at home, and I think that is it. It's about its perspective. It is the fact that what seems major and the most important thing now, that
Yeah.
it feels like it'll define you for life. Really, nothing defines you for life. You know,
Yeah.
what defines you for life happens over time. Chota steps, little
Yeah.
steps at a
And
time.
yeah, and
It
you're
is
allowed to sort of recreate yourself. You're allowed to
yeah,
recreate yourself over time. Yeah.
absolutely. You know, micro habits. Why are they important? When I
Yeah.
look at when I look at his grade card, for me, the more important thing is the learning habits part. You know, because
Right.
that's going to carry you further and further in life. I mean, of course, it's
Yeah.
important how well you do in math or how well you do in physics, but in the long run, A, B में ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है. पर
Yes.
आप learning habits क्या है? That is that is extremely critical. And for people like you and me, again, who went to school in India, that's not something we learned inherently. For me, a
Yes.
lot of that is stuff that I learned from my parents, stories from my father, waking up at 5:30 every day in the morning, stories from my mom, doing her yoga every day, regardless of what happened, what didn't happen, and
Yeah.
just consistency. So those are things that we lived through instead of learning as part of a curriculum. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really it's baby steps, it's micro habits, and nothing changes like this. It doesn't matter, whether you got that Ivy League or not. What really
Yeah.
matters, what you make out of the school that you go to.
Yeah. Yeah, Radhika, I completely agree. And, people talk about, change. And here at Sai Shiko, we're saying, look, sort of the micro bit of change is just a micro habit, right? I really wish that we were graded for habits, right? Do you show up? Do you get like, 80% on one paper and then you got that exponential grade because you got 82 in the next, because that's showing an upward trajectory. And you're absolutely right. We have learned, some of these things, with in the workplace. We've emulated role models. We've heard stories. At Saishiko, we're trying to say, look, we can build these skills deliberately, but it's important that I think as an entrepreneur, you've probably seen a lot of mindsets. So I want to talk about that a little bit, right? You handle teams, you handle multiple people in both your ventures. What would be that one piece of advice you want to give somebody who just joins Kind Life, I'm sorry, and what kind of mindset do you want to build in them? And what do you want to say?
Um, you know, there's a very core mindset that I have when I get people on board at Kind, and it is, I really want somebody who comes to the table with an opinion, who doesn't
Yeah.
just my head, he also brings his heart. Please remember that we are a startup, and that was the truth at Shop Clues as well. So for somebody who
Mm-hmm.
comes to the table with a passion of making a
Mm-hmm.
difference, you don't have to be from an IIM, you don't have to be from the top schools. If you are, great, I'm very, very grateful. Come on, join in. But the point is that you have to bring that passion, you have to bring that heart to work. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, after Shop Clues got acquired by a Korean company, I saw a lot of the way they run their business, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at their core values, loyalty is number one. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The others don't matter. It's loyalty that's number one. So
Mm-hmm.
simply,
Mm-hmm.
if I look at my core values, I would say compassion,
Mm-hmm.
passion, both separate,
Mm-hmm.
both very important. And the third point is the ability to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
Reflect on your own performance, what you've done, and what you can do better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in that failure marks you for life. I don't think that's true. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not about me thinking yes or no. Failure doesn't mark you for life. But lack of trying definitely marks you for life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, the idea that reflection can be hardwired, and if you can just hardwire this habit of reflection, it's again a virtuous cycle to self improvement. And you don't have somebody else to tell you that. You get lucky with mentors, Radhika. You get lucky with people who inspire you. You get lucky with a really great teacher, but it's Russian roulette, right? It's not always the case. So I think if, listening to you, if we can just get that word out there, that you can just reflect after each action what you could
Yeah.
have done better, then you kind of develop this own toolkit to go out there and kind of doing better and trying again. I mean, I absolutely agree. And how have you experienced, you've had now enough experience to see um, how people react when they're under pressure. This is something I also wanted to talk about, and a little bit of compassion is what you're talking about. I mean, everybody wants to get their job work. You're the boss. You need things delivered. And you pointed out the difference between compassion and passion. And how do you kind of, build on your compassion strength, but still get the deliverables in place? How do you manage that?
I think you can't be a successful or an integral part of a team
Yeah.
um, without having compassion as at least some aspect of your own core values, and nothing can be achieved by an individual.
Yeah.
Everything is more by a team. So I'm not, I'm never a big believer in heroes at work. I think, appreciation, kudos are important. But are you a true team player? I mean, a lot of people talk about team players. They feel कि मैंने इतना मेहनत किया, I worked so hard in a team of 10 and everybody got the appreciation for it. Why am I much better than that? Trust me, the people you work for, they know what you're doing.
Right.
But very important to have, to move as a team, right? To move as a team and have the ability to have people move along with you as a team as well. Now having said that, let me put that in perspective for 16, 17-year-old kids. I think the ability to work with a group of people, the ability to be able to understand what it is that people need from you, or what it is that you bring to the table as well. I think that's beyond critical, right? That's beyond critical, because when you go to a graduate school, when you go to do your MBA, etc., I feel half the time you learn more from your peer group than you learn from the professor who's standing at the head of the class. And that's true throughout your career. I enjoy conversations like the one that I have with you, Vinati, about, we've talked about every aspect on, and we've also had these conversations about Netflix shows and why some of them are changing the way we should be thinking. And that's a learning exercise for me, because I don't think the way you do. But when I hear you say things, I go back and look at it. I want to learn more about it. So I think the ability to keep your ears open, and all of that is a part of compassion.
Yeah, I think, you've linked a lot of things together. You've linked sort of listening with an open mind. We tend to listen to respond and not listen to understand. Linking that with what others need, which is, I guess, the essence of collaboration. And then kind of sinking in with a bunch of people for positive collective outcomes. It takes effort, though, doesn't it, to just sort of stop and listen compassionately and meaningfully, because we tend to come from very strong points of view. High performers suffer from that almost exponentially, right? So it's as if we need to stop and just listen again and rethink. And rethinking is difficult. It's difficult because our habits and thinking habits are formed over time. What do you do mindfully in leading meetings, for example, to make sure that you're hearing everybody, really just hearing everybody?
I don't know if I have a clear answer to that, but I'll pick out that one thread that you said, that high performers tend to have a very strong opinion. But I feel that high performers are the ones who tend to question themselves the most as well. And they question themselves. They are the ones, when they come with an opinion, they always have work behind, research behind, data behind it to back it up. So, and that is consistent, at least that's what I've seen. It's consistent across, across groups, across teams as well. They've done their homework when they come important about it. And I think that, I've written on team building earlier as well. And I always believe that if I'm going to hire someone, I want them to be better than me in that particular field for sure. Smarter than me in general. And, so my team always jokes that we are all smarter than you. And I believe they are for a reason. I definitely could not do their job to the detail that they can. But every high performer questions themselves. Those opinions are not formed without backing. And as if I'm sitting at the head of the table, I know they're there for a reason. And I've hired them to listen to their voice, not to have them execute on what I'm telling them to do. And I try to But I will
Yeah.
tell you, early on in my career, there was a lot of insecurity. Is this person, is this person going to take my job? Is this person going to be better than me than in the team performance that we have?
Yeah.
And I believe that that insecurity and that consciousness uh, to be better than person one and be better than I am today also leads to growth in a way. It goes
Yes.
back to the same things that
Yeah.
high performers are have a strong opinion because they've done their homework on it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't done my homework, so I expect that बाकी लोग मेरा time now waste करें.
Yeah. Yeah. This is it's always a question that I tend to, when I get feedback, for example, this is a small trick I have is to, my first reaction is obviously very, very alligatorish, right? Which is to snap back, at least in my mind, right? And the second thing is just to kind of look at it and say, well, if I take this feedback, will the work product be better?
Yeah.
And I've learned that over time, right? So the defense goes down, the reflection starts, and I look at the outcome and say, this is going to really help me.
Ab-
80% of the time, if I can just separate the personality of the boss, for example, and just listen, right? It is for my good. It is for a better work product. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. They do reflect, and I think this, if we can just manage our own insecurities with a little better judgment on if this feedback will improve us.
yeah.
And kids tend to do that in school all the time. I mean, the first reaction they have to a hard, ass teacher, for example, is really just I don't like the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just something. You know, that's where you lose. That's where you stop showing up.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's awesome. Tell me, I've got a couple of questions set up for you, and there's a bit of a rapid fire here, and we can continue to talk. But I thought this would be a nice break here. And they speak to resilience, but you'll see how it's all sort of merged in. I just want to get a response from you, just completely unthought of it. But do you curse when things go wrong?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it make you feel good?
It relieves the pressure.
Yeah. Which is your favorite pickup movie?
They're watching, no cursing, guys.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said I don't want my kids to curse though. If they're watching, then no cursing.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we can be slightly hypocritical on this one.
Yeah.
What about, which is your favorite pick me up movie? Which is an inspirational movie that kind of you love seeing again and drives you to sort of show up again and again?
It's not really a pick me up movie. So again, it's a bit of a secret pleasure confession over here. But I love movies like Dil Dhadakne Do, Zindagi Bolegi Dobara. All the movies that have good. Again, I'm trying not to use the right word, eye candy, but the aesthetics. Let's put it that way.
Okay, fine. And name one song or an artist whose music kind of again drives you to show up. I mean, you show up every day in through all of that you've experienced. You mentioned you never missed a day. So, which one song or a couple of music stars that make you keep coming back and showing up at that edge of performance that you function at?
So I won't say it's necessarily music, but in a way it is. It is really Gulzar. Of all my life, I've been an aspiring poet and a terrible one at per se, terrible. But, when I look at him and the way he works on his craft always, and even today, I feel that he's blessed. But I know that it's a lot of hard work that goes behind it as well.
Yeah, okay. And if you were in quarantine, and you were offered a book of poems or a book of retail strategy, what would you pick, Radhika?
Poems, any day.
Why poems? Poems heal, is it? Is that the reason why you'd sort of pick poetry?
Poems touch me. Just I don't know why I don't know how to answer it, but they speak to my heart. And the last 2 years, the last year and a half have been tough on all of us. And even today, if I want to have a chill evening, it is more about the poems than any movie, anything else.
Yeah, it's awesome. So this was a little tough one, and I know kids will be listening at some point. But if you had a fairy godmother who said, "Look, I've got two things to give you. You can choose only one, and you do have to keep the long-term perspective in mind." But would it be grit or would it be intelligence? What would you pick, Radhika, and why?
Grit, grit, easily. In fact, this is an easy one for me. I feel grit gets you further than intelligence does. I know a lot of people who are super smart, super intelligent, but don't have the consistency to see things through. And really, there is, what do you do with people like that? It is, they'll go so far in life, and there is a lot of appreciation, but God bless you, so be happy. But grit is truly taking your own destiny in your hand. It might work, it might not, but you'll feel good about it either way.
All right, so you'd pick grit. When someone doubts your ability and you have to give them a passionate response, what would you say to them?
I would show them rather than give them a response. I've
Yeah.
been known out of meetings without really giving a response, and coming back with more performance than anything else. Um, and I know this is not the topic of the evening, but as a woman in a field that is dominated by men, there are lots of people who question you non-stop, and um, actually, क्या जवाब देना है? I mean, doubters will be doubters, and as the teenagers say, haters will hate.
Yes, and doubters will be doubters, and doers will be doers, and dreamers will be dreamers. And I think we have to sort of find which one we are, and what can we do. Um, Radhika, when someone gives you feedback, right, and that feedback makes sense to you, what do you say to them?
I say thank you, keep it coming. Thank you, keep it coming. But I'll also say that in my 40s, where I am right now, I know that there are certain voices that I can hear, and certain voices I can't. So I don't necessarily go back to people whose voices might be, the feedback might be right, but I feel I can't hear them. It's very difficult to explain this, but I know that there are certain people, and I also know who these people are, right? Where a simple feedback just makes complete sense, and it is actionable. I know what to do with it. But then there are others who talk about the same thing but in a different perspective, and I feel I can't hear their voice, so I don't strain my energy on listening to that. But I think that's a privilege that I've earned in my 40s. I probably didn't have it in my 30s and 20s, but right now I feel I don't need to listen to everybody and their mom. um, People who make sense, yeah, definitely. Doesn't mean I'm not taking feedback, it's just certain voices don't appeal.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is supposed to be rapid fire, but actually, I think in some sense, you have to judge the credibility of, our conversation it can never be rapid fire because I think we are mindfully responding most times. But yes, I think over time, you can be a little bit more discerning and uh, you know, you can be discerning about the credibility of the source of that feedback too. So you have to be careful about that because, again, doubters can always be doubters and their feedback doesn't quite make sense. Radhika, tell me if you had to pick three words that you would put in a resilience toolkit and hand it over to a 22-year-old today. What words would those be? Um, I would love to hear what would you just put in that bag and say, hand it over, and this is what's going to be good guidance at least, and they can put in their own words. But what would it be?
um, can I give a repeat answer to what I said earlier?
Just show up with just showing up. But think, how would you? Yeah, that's done. That's awesome, and I think people need to just show up. But
I would say
um,
fair,
what would you put in there?
fair. I would say grit, very important. Passion, come with your heart. Grit is pretty much don't give up, keep trying again and again. Passion, when you're passionate about something, resilience comes more easily to you.
Yeah.
And I'm unfortunately repeating words, but Vinati, that's really what I truly believe in. And the third one is compassion. You lead better, you learn better, you are a better team player when you have compassion in it.
So grit and compassion, and we just have to sort of keep showing up. It's been unbelievable listening to you. You're a dear friend. You offer your feedback generously. You emulate what you have, shared with me today. So thank you so much. I'm very mindful of this being an Insta. This was my first Instagram live, so thank you for being kind and making sure that it worked out well. Thank you, Radhika. I hope everybody who's listened in, takes a little bit of your grit, your passion, your compassion, and builds out their own path. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and bye to everyone who logged in. I saw some familiar names. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. I'm not very familiar with this, but this has been a nice, lovely, lovely afternoon chat. So thank you. Thank you so much, Radhika.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.